Welcome back to the Nullified Tech channel on YouTube, where we've got all the TNT takes for you on Million Dollar Island, Australia. For the very first time this season, I'm your host, Chris, and with me is our regular co-host, Mucky. Mucky, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing so good, brothers. I'm doing so good. It's been a while, Chris, since we've done a cheeky little podcast together. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the last time we were on a podcast together was probably the finale week of Australian Survivor. Obviously,
Yeah.
Million Dollar Island piqued our interest because it looked like there was going to be so much similarities to Survivor. What's your thoughts on that, Mucky? Do you feel like there are similarities between the shows, or do you feel like it's pretty much two completely different shows? They're just both on an island.
I think they're both completely different shows. While there's like Survivor elements, like I feel like a lot of challenges are Survivor related, but made 10 times harder. Like in the first week, there was a fire making challenge. But instead of like trying to burn through a rope, it's keep the fire overnight and then try to burn through a rope by transferring it to another fire. So I feel like it's Survivor, but way harder.
Yeah, I think the thing for me that makes the game hard is that there are very large elements of luck in the beginning of the game. I didn't really like the roulette spin all that much to get power because I feel like it's, you don't technically, and I put that in quotation marks, deserve to win by a lucky roulette. But as the game continues, now there are some strategy coming into it because, as Jonathan here is saying, hello, Jonathan, welcome to the live, not a great week for Log because they lost half their bracelets. Bracelets is becoming such an important thing in the game right now because, certain camps, like Vine Camp, for instance, they have no bracelets.
Yeah, they've got nothing but food. The lower numbers, they've got no bracelets, but they got crap tons of food. But hey, Log's got a lot of bracelets, a lot of people, but no food. So what really matters in the end,
Yeah, food. Food matters, apparently.
Food. Exactly.
Listen, I'm so excited to be back on a live. This is the first live I've done in quite a while, but obviously I've been talking about the season and the top 5 takes the whole time, but that's just snippets. So I don't get to fully, go back and forth with someone on some of my ideas. So I'm sure you'll keep me on check on a few of them. But let's say hello to a few of the people here in the live. Danny Carr, welcome back to the live, saying I'm just dropping off my husband to work and heading back in to tune in, or we'll be listening in the car. Welcome to the live. Really good to have you here. Andre, welcome to the live. I noticed that you started watching this week as well and commenting on some of the top 5 takes. Kahuna, recovering in pain, but I can't miss these two. Hey, listen, we're very, very happy that you're taking time while recovering to listen to us today, Kahuna. You sit back, kick your feet up. We've got this. Don't worry about it. You've been doing a really good job this season. I've been very impressed with both you and Mucky on the coverage here. Andre saying, floaters, grab your live vest. There was a bit of that last week, right, with D-Day. And where we start off this week is straight after D-Day, where, my strategy early on, Mucky, was that you just don't take the risk. Why go in, put yourself in there, get more bracelets, just wait until the end game and win a couple of challenges, maybe 1 or 2 in the end, and take all the money home. But clearly, Anne had a plan for that because you couldn't sit back in this game because if you've only got 1 bracelet, you're still in danger.
Yeah, exactly. It's a key strategy that started with my boy, Mike Chapman, on day 1 by putting yourself up against, some of the strongest competitors. It's a key strategy, I think. It worked out great for Chelsea, so...
Yeah, it did. Joy, welcome to the live.
The player's so nice, they name her twice. Welcome back, Joy.
Welcome back. And Jonathan saying Million Dollar Island is way more like Big Brother in a game sense, honestly. I can see some similarities. But again, in Big Brother, you've got HOH where you can fight to get power in the game. Like, that's the element that's kind of missing for me a little bit. But, I'm also getting used to the game still, Mucky, because we've never seen this play out. We've never seen a full season of Million Dollar Island before, so it's hard to judge early on in the game if people are making the right decision by throwing themselves in when they get power or not. Chelsea does get the power here this week, and she does end up throwing herself in. I was very surprised by that move, the confidence that she had, but in hindsight, it was the right move, but no one so far has been able to do it successfully until Chelsea.
No, it's a very strange, like I guess, what's it called? Ratio of people who put themselves in and lose, and people who put themselves in and win. Because you'd think if you're going to put yourself in, you would strategically do it so you're up against, like, quote unquote weaker players. But sometimes people put other competitors up, like for example, the last episode, Jaden, I think he went up against Corey, who's probably one of the biggest challenge beasts on the season, and he was really banking on winning. And as I talked about my boy Mike, he thought he had a chance against these other really strong dudes, and so like what would you do, Chris, if you were to put yourself up in there? Would you go for who's got more number of bracelets, or would you go for who are the more like weaker players, so that you can definitely...
You see, this is going to sound so funny, but you almost don't want to be the person who's like second or third, because it seems like that person, when it comes to the amount of bracelets they have, they're always first in the firing line when someone gets into power. I think Corey this week, it showed he had a tremendous social game, because even though he's been the second most powerful person in the game, Chelsea doesn't put him in, because Chelsea's got a friendship with Corey. Like, how strong is that friendship that you're not going to go after the person with the most bracelets? So I almost feel like you take on some people with one bracelets that you think you can beat, and then sit on 50 or 60K, not fully challenging in the early stages of the game. But then again, Chelsea ends up taking those people in. So what do I know? She ends up putting people down there with 4 bracelets, 5 bracelets, because she's trying to get some money, but she's not going after the big dog Corey himself, which I was impressed by. Like, Corey has been a phenomenal player this season.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been great. I thought that like, he's probably not going to be that like strategic coming in, but he showed like a lot of like strategic ability in the whole camp versus camp dynamic, and definitely seeing his like very strong social bonds. He really did unite log together, it seemed.
Yeah. Jojo here says Chelsea is an absolute legend and is next level at the challenges. She needs to go on to the challenge. I agree, Jojo. Like, that was exactly like, I am Chelsea's number one stan after this week. I'm such a big supporter of hers. And this whole week, the funny, like, normally I watch the show and I had this epiphany when I was doing my top 5 takes. I'm always team villain. Like, in any show that I watch, I always like the bad boy or the bad girl, the one that, gets the viewers angry. But I'm finding it hard to shout for Brett this week and in this season, because, Brett's just sitting on the sideline saying, oh, this person's mucking up the game. Oh, this person's doing terrible decisions, while there's no risk to him. And he's having a go at Chelsea early on here, and I think why I like Chelsea so much is because she's had Brett with egg on his face this whole week.
Yeah, she really has, like twice as well. Like, I was rewatching the episodes earlier, and he's like, honestly, mate, I would kind of prefer if Chelsea drops. She kind of deserves it. And then she tops it out. And then just the look on Britt's face as well. It's like, oh, I have to eat my words up now. But I think she's
my favorite part. My favorite part was Brett, like, when the whole team celebrates Chelsea's win in this first episode, Brett, you see him sitting in the back, not celebrating. And then last minute, he just like fakes it and goes in. And I'm like, Brett's so sour right now. That was amazing.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I did feel, for Jonty a little bit. He just came off a win and he was quite likable in the previous week. And then he had to go straight back in. But, he kind of sulked a little bit about it, where Chelsea had the opposite approach when she was chosen to go back in there, back to back. She was like amping and raring to go.
Yeah. Nah, I guess it's all about like mentality thing, right? Yeah, you can look at something and kind of treat it, but then that sort of negativity is going to affect how you're going to perform. Whereas if you have that sort of positive, like motivational energy about you, then you're definitely going to give it your 110 best shot. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely more mind over matter with some of these challenges.
Joy coming up here for her fellow player. Brett's a great guy. He's just got a motor mouth on him. And listen, I'm definitely don't dislike Brett the guy. I think he's probably a really good bloke outside of the game. I think it's just he's doing a good job at being that annoying armchair critic sitting on the sidelines. Like, he's been in there twice. I know he deserves to have the bracelets that he has, but me getting annoyed with him isn't because of him, the person outside of the game. It just means he's doing a bloody good. Like, the show would not be the same without Brett. Like, if Brett wasn't there, I think it would be a yawn fest, right, Mucky?
Oh yeah, probably. He's brought so much entertainment right from day one. Like, in that first challenge, he was meant to be like the easy win. But he's the one who like demolished everyone, from such a come from behind victory.
That was amazing.
Again, it was fantastic. And then he gets put in a challenge where you have to like say who you're adding extra weight onto, and nobody added any weight to Brett. So like
Yeah.
he's definitely improved.
Kahuna saying after creating like
Yeah.
podcasters. You didn't need to do me dirty like that, Kahuna, okay? And also Jonathan is saying, and then you don't lose as much when someone wins survival 2. Yeah, I think that's in regards to the format of the game. And then also Giorgio here saying Corey won Mr. Congeniality on the whole island. And I can just see it. He looks like a great guy. And I do hope, because obviously the way that he goes out this week is such a sad way to see him go without fighting in a survival challenge. Who knows if he would have been able to win and compete with Lisa, who was phenomenal in that survival challenge. But, you don't want to see a competitor go out in the way that he did, injuring himself at nighttime, injuring his ACL, which has been a recurring injury for him. I just hope that we do see Corey back on our TV screens at some point, be it $1 Million Island or, Australian reality TV, I think, is really starting to get just better and better, because I even started watching Rush this week as well. And that looks like another great show that David Gannett is the host of. But Australian TV's got so much reality now. You could go The Challenge, you could go Rush, you could go Amazing Race, Survivor. Corey will fit into something, I'm sure. Even Big Brother, I could see him do really well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Heroes versus villains, $1 Million Island, Corey's definitely guaranteed on. As a villain, no. No, he's a great hero, yeah.
Andre Lee recruiting Brett for Survivor. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Brett in Survivor? He's kind of giving me like, that George vibes in some ways. Like, I'm not saying he would be that big of a strategic player as George, but he's got that presence about him that can carry a show, that can carry a season. He's good at confessionals. He's good at invoking a certain emotion or feeling out of the audience, which I think is important when you cast for reality TV. Jonathan's saying 7 medivacs in 3 weeks.
Gosh, that's nuts.
And Giorgio's saying, nah, Brett for Alone. I've not watched Alone yet. That's a survival show as well, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one. Unless it's the one that was on Netflix, because I watched one that was on Netflix not that long ago. That was pretty decent as well. But let's talk a little bit about it, because this week it's been an ongoing storyline for the season, and I kind of spoke about this in the top 5 takes. Who would have thought when we started watching $1 Million Island, the most controversial thing about the show would be the food situation, and who's got food, who doesn't have food. I found myself getting, and again, I've got to remind myself, like, I've watched reality TV for a very long time, 20 plus years now. I'm all into the strategy. I'm all into the competitive side of the show. So I'm looking at it from that lens, and maybe, I'm missing some things here, but I was Team Jack this whole week, not Team Kylie. I felt like, her calling him out as a bully, her going like really hard on him, trying to play that emotional game. Like, we said this earlier on, Vine's got nothing but food, and they're trying to get to the end of this game as well. That is the only leverage they've got. But there was a big battle between the two camps here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a humongous battle, and it even went into last week as well. And I think it's going to keep on continuing for the rest of the weeks as well. But it is such an interesting, like, original storyline, because I don't think we've had like a drama like this even on Survivor before as well, because it's just.
Can you do that voiceover guy from Australian $1 Million Island where they're like, would you do this to another human being? and they show Jordan going out there trying to get food, and Jack is like stone cold. No, I was laughing at it. So I'm like, this is a game show. What do you mean would you do this to another human being?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that it's such like a real thing. This food stuff. It's not like, you betrayed this person, but it's a game. It's like, I guess it is a true survival elements, and from what players have said as well, like this whole starvation and like the whole island life itself was already like extremely like quite difficult. So definitely adding on the fact of having no food must be really tough. But Jonathan.
You guys are a bunch of bullies. Maybe we're just raised differently, though. Listen, I think, I don't want to just like brush over it, because we weren't out there. We weren't starving for food. But going out there, like even if I was starving, like I would know that this is not a human being denying another human being of food in real life. This is a game, and a part of the game is that you can quit. So if the
Yeah,
food situation gets too hard, like if they couldn't quit, if it was you had to be eliminated to get to leave the game or medevac, maybe I would
yeah,
have felt a little bit um, like it would still struggle because it's the competitive side to it that makes me
yeah,
really struggle. But I would understand it a little bit more that there is no escape. But there is an escape. If it's getting too hard, you can quit this game and you can move out of it. So the same thing with this next on where Jordan's going there and asking for food because he's starting to black out and struggling. I feel for him as a human being. Like, listen, it can't be easy to be out there and not have food. On a lighter note,
yeah.
what would be the thing that you would miss the most if you were out there and you couldn't have it on a daily basis?
Chocolate milk, brother. Like
Chocolate
I'm a
milk.
man.
Why did I ask?
Yeah, exactly, bro. You knew the answer to that, man. But I love chocolate milk. You know, it's not an addiction; it's love.
Yeah,
All right, there's
yeah.
a very big difference. So, yeah, definitely chocolate milk for me. How about you?
You see, I don't know how I would do without coffee. Like, I don't know, like, because I'm a 3-4 cups a day kind of guy. Like, so for me, that's my biggest thing. But I do think that it would probably be some sort of protein. Like, I love my meat, like it would
Yeah,
have to be like a good old steak or, just food. Because every time I watch one of these reality TV shows where they do the reward challenges on other shows and they have like ice cream or cookies, I'm like, why? Like, this is no
yeah,
nutritional value to it. Like, I don't crave sugar. I would crave actual meat while I'm out there. But yeah, I do think that it would be hard. Let's have a look here. Joy saying, and Georgia obviously knowing what the situation was out there, saying Kylie apologized after for using the word bully. She said it was wrong choice of words, just didn't see it. An hour before that, she had nearly passed out. She was the leader of a camp and now cook. And listen, that's the one thing when I put myself in Kylie's shoes. Again, I do think that Jack is right. I'm not backtracking on the fact that this is a competitive reality TV show, but if I had to put myself in Kylie's shoes, she is a mother figure. She's used to caring for people. She's nurturing. So I feel like she took that responsibility on her of not being able to provide food to the camp, and that put the pressure
yeah,
on her to feel a certain kind of way. So I can understand that. I can understand that when you're out there, when you're struggling for food, and when the emotions are running high, you may say things or things may come out in a way that you don't want it to come out. I don't think Kylie is a bad person either. The way I look at reality TV is that these people are people that are put under severe pressure that is hard for us as viewers sometimes to understand. And sometimes viewers can pick sides a little bit too easily on this thing and just write the other person off, Mucky, when it comes to it.
yeah, definitely. I mean, almost like every like reality show forms your own like high school like group cliques, if you know what I mean, and you go to bat for those groups. You know, it's kind of like your
Yeah,
own alliances almost. So if someone in your alliance like hates something, you all hate something, and especially for log camp as well. All of them are like starving. Jordan's blacking out. Everyone must be so fatigued. So of course, it must be very frustrating for them. The vine camp has all this food, but not a lot of members, so they won't share. Which is why I have a question. If Georgia can maybe answer it, can you steal food?
yeah. I want
Like,
to know that
yeah,
as well, Georgia. Can you steal food from the other camp? Can you sabotage the camp? Because those are things that I've thought we would see by now, but it could also be because from what I'm seeing, it looks like Log Camp is the camp that wants to do everything by the book, and
yeah,
they have a certain moral standard that they're putting out there that I feel like wouldn't allow for them to do it. And I could be wrong. Maybe we can only talk about the people that we've seen in the edited show. Obviously, the camp's a lot bigger than that. Maybe there were certain
yeah,
individuals within that camp that haven't had screen time that would do things differently. Because one thing I will give Log Camp when it comes to them having to choose, Mucky, if they were going to let Jaden back in camp after he betrayed them, they
yeah,
do take the moral high ground and they allow for him
yeah,
to come back to camp, eat some bugs with them, and go to his bed, which some, lesser players like myself and you, Mucky, we maybe would have kicked him out.
yeah. Well, I actually think the greatest thing to do would be like Jaden. If you want to sleep in our camp, you got to steal the the vine camp's food and bring it over.
Yeah.
But nah, yeah, I would have kicked Jaden out.
Yeah.
You
Jojo is
you
saying
stop at
here,
that time.
he's saying you can definitely try, but it was against our morals. That's kind of how I see
Oh,
Log Camp. And
yeah,
And I will say this, Andrew Lee saying boring morals status. And listen, I get it. Like, I mean, if I was out there, I think you don't want it. Like, this is why I can never go play reality TV now, Mucky, because people will know this about me. This would be a game to me. I would treat it as a game. So people would be like, Chris would sabotage. We need to get rid of him first, get him out of the game. Because I wouldn't hold myself to those standards. But that's what makes the game interesting, though, is because every person that is out there do have to decide for themselves, where do they draw the line within the game? How much are they willing to do in the game? And what sometimes becomes boring when it comes to shows like Survivor or Big Brother or some of these games that have been on for a very long time, they're choosing more and more game body people now that have played so many or seen so many reality TV shows that are like you and I. They're all willing to backstab and do whatever they can to get to the end. Therefore, there is no will they do it, won't they do it? The food conversation doesn't come up, So I think this brings another element of freshness back to the show, and it gives me throwback vibes of when Survivor first started in the first 10 seasons, when people still did hold people to a higher moral standard playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. And, you bring up that point because that's a complaint I've been sharing with you for quite a while now with American Survivor. So everyone is a massive game bot, so everyone knows X, Y, Z, what the correct move is to do at every single vote of the game. That it sometimes gets a wee bit boring, I barely scraped through maths in high school, so I can't keep up with the with the numbers sometimes. But with $1 Million Island, it's just such a fresh, unique perspective because you do have your more strategic players like your Jacks, your Bretts, and your Jadens who are willing to take really massive risks. But you also have your very honorable heroes. And something that goes way back to Borneo was Hatch was like the first, Survivor villain, and he beat out against the honorable, Kelly, who won all the challenges, right? And that was the very big thing that drew everyone to Survivor. So it's great to have heroes and villains and not just robots.
Yeah. And then in the very next season, you had Tina winning, who was a hero, so and it kind of showed you that there was no specific way to get to the end and win the game. But it is fresh and it's something I'm enjoying. I do want to read a few more comments here. Georgia saying, Jack kept saying that we weren't foraging. We had people out there every day. And that's good to know, Georgia, because that is the perception I had of your camp. Because obviously, we're watching a reality TV show and we can only see what they're giving us in the edit. In the edit, it looked like they weren't going out there and doing some of that. And it looked like the Vine camp were, with the likes of Jack and Tony going out there looking like they provided for their camp a bit. Let's have a look here at a few more of the comments. Before Danica, I should say, it's old habits, says, I'm back home on the computer. Heal up quickly, Kahuna. Glad everything went well for you today. Yes, Kahuna, I hope you're still in the life and you got that. Voltonator saying, were Jack and Tony in a love romance? There was a lot of crying. It sounds like you know the Vault, Mucky. Tell me about it.
He actually played $1 Million.
Oh, right.
Island. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, he had no screen time on the island, but he had maximum screen time on our podcast. So that's, which is more
honorary
important.
guest. Honorary guest on the podcast. Yeah, exactly. It's more important to be active here with the fans, I think. But were they in the love romance? I mean, how again, they got really, really tight to the point where Jack almost considered giving up his game for Tony at the end. And clearly there was a bit cut out with Tony telling Jack to not do it because the guy, and I don't remember who was sitting next to Jack, was talking to him and saying, hey, Tony said it's okay, don't do it. So we missed some conversation there. I was quite surprised that Jack was willing to give up his spot in the game because no matter how close we are, Mucky, I'm never giving my spot up for you in the game. I hope you know that.
Oh, ouch, bro. I thought we were much closer than this, man. Yeah, it was very shocking to see Jack be so upset with Tony that he was almost quitting. The whole time I was thinking, oh gosh, Jack, please don't. We actually know you. We don't know Tony. I mean, I feel bad for saying that for Tony, but I was really hoping Jack would stay. But it was definitely a great drama moment, though. Something I do love about $1 Million Island is it's all different dramatic drama moments that do hook you in. I was on the edge of my seat going, oh my gosh, is Jack actually going to quit?
Yeah.
And I really had no idea. But I'm thankful.
Will he stay or will he go? Yeah, will he stay or
Yeah.
will he go? That's the big one. How have you felt about the whole aspect of the game where after the survival challenge, people can go around and ask to be saved in the game? How do you as a viewer feel seeing that? For me, it's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes seeing them go out there almost begging for their spot in the game, and then when people quit, they just ignore them and give it to their friends any case.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit hard to watch people like literally beg for their lives in the game for a chance at $1 million. But I mean, it's all part of the game. Yeah, we've seen on Survivor plenty of times. Like, it reminds me of Luke at the end of Champions vs Contenders. Like, he knew he was going, but he was putting in, like, he was like begging Pia. He was going on to Baden, and just pitching his life, and it's really hard to watch. But it's all part of the game, and I actually really like that aspect as well. I wasn't sure how it was going to work originally, but it's
Yeah.
something that's like it only works at the start of the game. Whereas I think the more deeper you get in the game, it's not going to work.
The one thing I wish they did, but I know why they didn't do it, because the game would have gone on for way too long, especially with 100 people. But I kind of wish that if you had more bracelets in the game, you could barter with it. Like you could give one or two away for bargaining power. Because I kind of said that, for those that don't watch Survivor, this might go over your heads, but, Survivor had the fire tokens, and this almost seemed like it could replace the fire tokens with having the money on your hand and being able to barter or bargain for certain things with that in the game, or choosing to save an ally with one of your 20 bracelets that you've got. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
what would be more important, $10,000 or an ally in the game? So I wish that was a little bit different, but I also get that a certain amount of people have to go every week. Maybe in that
yeah,
case, you just would have had certain elimination rounds where you couldn't do it, where it's like a purge, where kind of like what happened with D-Day. 10 people will go this week, no matter what, and you can't save them.
yeah. No, it's definitely something that Kahuna and I we've definitely talked about before, because I thought you could always do that. So I was always like, why isn't Corey saving people? Why isn't Brett saving people? But it turns out if you give up even just one bracelet, you're giving
It's
up
all.
all your bracelets. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
actually do really like that aspect, because in otherwise, yeah, like if you just get Corey winning every time, he's going to save everyone. So it'd just be an endless situation of just non-elims over and over again. And so, yeah, I do quite like that aspect of the game.
Yeah, let's read a few more of the live comments coming in here. Danica saying, this game is so different. Your camps aren't really safe. Corey kept this camp safe, but Brett has no problem throwing his own camp under the bus to get more bracelets from his fellow campers. That to me, like, listen, we spoke about it earlier. Brett, I don't hold this against them. And someone else also commented earlier that when we criticize characters, it's based on what they're doing in the game. I'm not a whole fan of going and, doing all these things that some fans do by chasing people and after the game is over and in their real life. But that has been the big difference between the likes of a Corey and a Brett, or now a Chelsea and a Brett. With Chelsea, she has kept Corey safe because he's a friend, and she's been willing to be cutthroat, but she's also got a moral line of what she will and won't do at this stage in the game. And she
Yeah,
wants to work with Top Camp. But
yeah,
Brett, on the other hand, he is not a team game player at all. He is playing for numero uno. Now,
yeah.
can I say I wouldn't play the game the same as him? No, I would probably people would hate me as much as Brett if I was out there, because I would probably play exactly like him.
Nah,
It's been good to see.
I'm sure you'll be the noble hero of Corey, Chris. You've got all those attributes. I'm sure you can grow long, beautiful blonde hair. I've seen your biceps. They're just as big. So
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Listen, I do think it does depend. Again, I say this tongue in cheek that I would play like Brett. I think I could play like Brett, but I also think that when you play these games, you've got to be adaptable to the people you're around. So if you were in Joy
yeah,
Joy's camp, where everybody has got this moral standard that they're putting out there, you can't be the only Jaden in the camp. We saw how good that worked out for him. Like, it's not going to fly. So you got to adapt to the
yeah.
people that you're in the camp with, right, Mucky?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like at a certain point, it does get down to an individual game. But I guess when there's still like I think what Jaden did, I think overall it was fine what he did, but he did it too soon, if that makes sense. Like you still have 12 people in top camp, I think. I'm not sure about the accurate numbers, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like 12 or 10 people in top camp. Like at least get some of them out first. And then maybe when you've got like, maybe 3 people top, 4 people vying, then you can start trying to make those moves. But I think what he did was really good. It was just at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voltinator is saying it's kind of pretty cool how they changed the log camp to Carla camp. Cool change. Crying, laughing emoji. Yeah, it's kind of weird, to be honest. Carla's been this big voice and this consistent person that's been edited from the start of the show until now. So it makes you wonder, does she go all the way somehow and win?
Yeah.
Like, why is she getting so much airtime compared to other people in that camp? And then also there was that, I didn't get to talk about it when that week happened, but I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that. That whole conversation between her and Adrian being this bad guy, going up against her, and then all we see is Carla talking bad about Adrian, but we never see Adrian talking bad about Carla, and she's like, "Oh, he's playing 4D chess by being kind." Like, that was a bit weird.
Yeah, I record that. Yeah, I was like, everyone else watching that was like, "Huh?" Like
what's he doing?
The whole time. Yeah, he's just building a shelter, but no, that's 4D chess. But no, I like every week I try to we power rankings based on the edit. I know that the show is very different to most other Australian shows where they mostly show the players that matter per episode. But Carla and Brett are actually my top 2 contenders to win at the moment. Originally it was Yasmin, but she's gone now. But when I've really narrowed it down, it's just Brett and Carla. I think with the screen time they've gotten, we always hear their perspectives start and end of the episode. So I think maybe the potential
Carla's high.
Last 2.
Carla's high for me. Brett, I think that they had no choice because Brett was in power from the start and he's been in power the whole time. So how can you not check in with the richest man on the island? So that one I can still see go either way. I could still see someone taking him out. I've got my fingers crossed that our girl Chelsea comes in and does, do the finishing blow on him and get him out of the game. But I can also see Chelsea but I mean, Chelsea's pretty solid. Let's talk about her performance. Like, she had 2 completely different challenges that she had to win here in this week. She had a word puzzle that she needed to solve, so showing she's got the brains. Obviously, being a teacher, it's granted being a PE teacher, but she's showing that she's got that skills, and then she's got the physical side by doing really well in the endurance challenge as well. Like, does Chelsea have a weakness? Would her weakness be going into a survival challenge? Because that's the only thing she's not been tested at.
Yeah, maybe. Everyone's got their strengths and their weaknesses, but so far Chelsea has been
except for me, right?
Beast. Yeah, except for you. Yeah, you would ace everything, Chris.
No weaknesses.
No weaknesses. But yeah, I think
my weakness is big.
Oh my god!
No, you go. Sorry, I'm messing with your train of thought.
No, it's all good, brother. It's all good. Yeah, I think I think Chelsea's got this because she seems to be the jack of all trades. Yeah, she's got the brains, she's got the brawn. But I do have a complaint though about the word puzzle. Can I dive into that real quick?
Go for it.
So basically, Ant was like, okay, how many words can you make out of that? And they each had to give a number. And it's like, oh, I think I can get 9. Oh, I can get 10. Oh, I can get 11. Tony should have just one-upped it. Like, oh, I think I can do 12. Because, since she got 11, she then beat out Tony. But what if Tony just kept on being like, no, I reckon I can get 13. Oh, Chelsea, yeah, you do it. You try to get 13. Because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe would they have gotten Tony to try to do it himself? I'm not sure. But I feel like just keep one-upping it.
Yeah, well, the problem is as soon as the other person says, I can't do more than you, then the person who's got the highest number, they have to go out there and prove it, right? So if Tony said, I could do 13, and Chelsea's like, no, I can't, then Tony's got to do it. That was the rule in the game, right? So I did like it because there was an element of bluffing. We've seen this before in another reality TV show called The Challenge, where they normally do it with weight, or they've done it in the past with weight before, where 2 people would be down there and they would have all these plates that they would put on something and say, I could do 5 plates, I can lift 5. And then the other person might say, oh, I'll do 8. And then whoever has the highest amount automatically has to prove it. What I liked about this one that's better than The Challenge is that they had the ability to up from the other person. So for instance, if the one says 6 and the other one says 8, they can say, well, actually, I'll take you on, I'll do 9, so they could up the ante by continuing up to a certain point where they just didn't feel comfortable. But what really impressed me with Chelsea, and this is the Chelsea number one stan podcast this week, because what really impressed me about her was how she floundered in the middle of this thing. She had 6 by a minute, and then by 30 seconds left, she still had about 4 to go. And she found a way to get herself composed again and get those words on there, even though she was still like spelling certain words that weren't words, like rad, for instance, and saying that's not a word. I really was impressed by her ability to bounce back and keep a cool head and still get the win there. Because when she stalled, I could have seen myself, that would have been the place where I would have probably freaked out and not have been able to get myself back to doing it. So really impressed by that. Really impressed by Tony as well this week with the word puzzle doing extremely well. And then they had a very interesting survival challenge, which we haven't spoken about yet, which is to build a raft and then go out and collect crabs. I'm a big fan of the survival challenges. I think I like the survival challenges almost more than the actual challenges in the show, because it proves to me that these people deserve to be out there. They can live on the land.
Yeah.
And I think they should bring something like this into Survivor. Bring a survival element back into the game where old school survival players like an Aussie can do well when he goes out and plays in the next All-Stars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The survival challenges for me are more interesting than the actual challenges, because as an audience member, you also learn something as well. Like, oh, okay, if you were, going up fishing for like crabs or anything, what would be a good raft type to use? And we saw completely different ones. We saw a large one that Tony had used, but we also saw if you just chuck a couple of sticks together, wrapped up in some rope, you can use it like a surfboard. And that also worked too. And also like as I mentioned, the fire making challenge, there's also like a shelter building one. Yeah, like as an audience member, you're learning like ways you could survive out on the island as well. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Let me catch up on a few more of the live comments here, because we have fallen behind by quite a bit. Apologies. We probably won't be able to read every single person's comments every single time, but I'm going to do my best to catch up. Dolores, welcome to the live, saying, Chris, I cannot see you in such a villain role. Not saying you would not be strategic and ruthless, but you would do it with style. Yeah, I mean, listen, I say a lot of things with tongue in cheek. I don't know how I would react when I'm out there, but I do think that I would adapt to the situation. So if the situation requires for me to be a villain, I could play that role. If the situation requires for me to be a hero, I could play that role as well. I think, when you go out there and play these games, a lot of people have like this perceived thoughts in there, or they've got this preconceived ideas of what they want to do when they get out there. And that is when you get caught out, when you're trying to play a character that doesn't fit into the tribe. And, knowing what Voltinator is saying here, that becomes even more relevant, because he says, no, Andre, you cannot change tribes. You are locked in once you're there, which I think they should look at changing that, because that to me doesn't allow a certain fluency, a fluent side to the game. Why, if they're in the beginning, they could choose their own camps, choose where they wanted to set up camp, they can't change camps later on? It makes no sense to me, Mucky.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because, I mean, it does add an interesting element, because it's like at the start of the game, everyone chooses their own camp, I think. Like that's why you had such like random mixed numbers, like top with like 12 and log with like 24 or something like that, almost a whole entire Australian Survivor cast, but so I definitely do think it adds a lot of interesting elements. It's like based on first impressions, that's a camp you're stuck with. But yeah, because I guess if you're allowed to keep changing camps, it's like, okay, well, one whole friendship group is one camp, and then you don't have any clashes or anything, kind of like with Jaden.
Well, I found it interesting how Corey said that Chelsea was his best friend out there, and Chelsea's best friend was Corey, but they weren't in the same camp, for instance. That was quite ironic, and obviously there's other friendships that's probably developed in the same way. I do want to read through more of these live question or I guess conversations that's going on here. Joy is saying it was a real shock when Jaden did that, because we were such a family and he shook on it with Corey. It felt at the time like such a backstabbing move, but we understand why he did that after we got calm. obviously emotions was high. We could see that with him. All I can say is it's always in the eyes. Jaden's got shifty eyes, Mucky. I wouldn't have trusted him.
Yeah,
He looked like he wanted to backstab someone.
yeah. You could tell he's just itching, like, oh, I can't wait to get some power so that I can backstab someone.
Jojo says Carla's a powerhouse, and I would follow her into the end of the earth. She's the reason we all survived. Clearly a natural leader. One of the reasons they're giving her a lot of airtime, and also someone who actually has some survival skills. When you're out there, you want someone that can teach you how to forage and do things to keep yourself sustained while you're out there. Jonathan saying it's similar finale style to the challenge. I think the final 3 play for the share of the million on their wrist. Wow, that would be interesting, because I've wondered if it's going to be 3 winners at the end when they say only 3 will survive till the end. So it's not clear yet if there's going to be 1 winner or 3 winners, Mucky.
Yeah, no, that'd be quite interesting, because we don't know how the show works. Like, this is a whole new world, I guess you can say, for everyone watching this show, because we don't know how it's going to end, like what the final challenges would look like. Is it just going to be one big survival challenge, maybe?
Yeah. Danica is saying, I feel bad for some of the contestants who have had absolutely no airtime. An entire camp disappears and all those with 1 bracelet are gone, just like that. No story, no airtime. I think that when you've got 100 people playing the game, sadly, that is going to happen. I mean, we find it hard enough to get to know everybody when there are 24 players or 22 players playing Survivors. So this was always going to happen. It doesn't take away from, I'm sure, the feeling of the contestant who went out there and told all their family and friends, I'm going to be on the show. You're going to see me. It's going to be so great. And then none of their story is being told, which is obviously sad. But I kind of understand it more with this show, with 100 people, than sometimes when we get a 16 or 18 person Survivor season, you feel a little bit more sad for them, because like there should have been, at least on the day that you got booted, you should get some airtime, and some people don't even get that. Giorgio saying Chelsea has no weaknesses, and then Voltonator, I don't know if you're talking about Chelsea or Carla there. I'm not too sure. You're going to have to clarify. Giorgio saying, Danica, I'm a proud contestant, but you'll never know I'm on the show, and 1000% fine with it. I wasn't a part of the drama, but I know I made an impact on the island, and just proud to be OG. And obviously you've got your own like memories and experiences, like of having been out there, that you can take with you, because we often hear, Mucky, about when we watch Survivor, they talk about the game we didn't see, the game that they played while they were out there. And that's something that no one can take that away from you, that you've been out there.
Exactly. It really is just such a life-changing experience as well. Like, there's no real test other than starving yourself on an island and having to do all these different kind of challenges, not just the challenges, but like the emotional challenges, being away from your comfort, your family, your friends, your whānau, just away from everything, and so it's definitely something no one can ever take away from you, whether the audience sees it or not. But I'm sure it'll be like really great memories.
Yeah, Voltonator just clearing the air there, saying no, he doesn't like Carla that much, but Chelsea he does love, because Chelsea looks like just a bundle of energy and joy. And I'm very interested to see how things are going to turn out with her for the rest of the game. Salim says, I watched the Arabic version. It ended 10 days ago. It wasn't that good, actually. Oh, okay. Well, Salim, welcome to the show. And that's very interesting that you think that. So are you enjoying the Australian version? Is that something that you feel like is playing better on TV compared to the Arabic version? Because I do know that they were thinking about, NBC in America were thinking about having a US version of Million Dollar Island. It was supposed to also release this year, but it got cancelled before it even aired. So I don't know why. If the concept itself, somebody might have said, we're not willing to. I'm sure they're regretting it now, though, Mucky. With the writer's strike over in America, they would have loved to have some more reality TV to put on NBC when they don't have the regular shows showing anymore. Because that's what CBS and Paramount and all those places are doing right now. MTV, they're stocking up on reality TV because they know that will fill in for the spots when the writer's strike's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real shoot in the leg, missing out on on Million Dollar Island. But I'd love to know what maybe the ratings are at the moment in Australia, because I know that for the premiere it started off really well, and I know they've dropped down a bit. So
I've been keeping an eye. Because I always find numbers very interesting to see if a show is going to be successful or not. So the first week it started off with about 400,000, 440,000 people watching it, which was really high for a new show, and it has fallen to the mid 200,000s the last time I checked. And yep, Voltinator is confirming that ratings are currently between 250 to 270k, which is still slightly higher than Traitors Australia, because Traitors Australia had about 200, 220. And we thought that Traitors Australia was going to get cancelled, but then it got renewed for another season. So it's two different channels from memory that are showing this. So I don't know if there's a different criteria for what ratings is acceptable or not, but I'm hoping that $1 Million Island does get a second season, because I'm really interested to see how people will form camps next time, knowing that having more people in the camp will mean there's more mouths to feed in the beginning. And, there's certain things you could learn from watching this now that players can bring if they watch the first season that will, I think, evolve the strategy of the game. So I'm hoping that the show gets at least 2 or 3 seasons. Plus, we haven't spoken about him at all. I'm a big Ant supporter. I've always loved Ant from his SAS days, Those Who Dares Win. So I've watched that from the UK version to the Australian version. So I'm really happy for him getting his own show, and I think he's doing a really good job.
Well, I do have a problem, and bloody Kahuna made me aware of this. I had no idea about it until Kahuna pointed out to me. But ever since he pointed out to me, I can't miss it. But every time he says a word with R, I think it is. No Q, but it makes sound like a W or like an R or something. I don't know, and it drives me bonkers. Like every time he says quick, it's like wick, like and and ever since Kahuna pointed out to me, like every time, it drives me bonkers. It's like, why Kahuna? Why? Nah, jokes. But he's a really good host. I'm really enjoying him on the season, especially his like voiceovers of everything.
I think he's good, and also I like the fact that when it comes to a show such as $1 Million Island, where it is about surviving out in the elements, this is a person who actually knows what he's talking about. It's not like a host that comes from being an actor or something like that. It's actually someone who has lived and walked the walk. So when they had the survival challenge with them having to build the camps this week, and he had to go there and judge them, it's funny how he picked up on something I picked up immediately as well. When Lisa built her one with a very steep incline, immediately I was thinking, well, that's not going to be good wind shelter or sun shelter. But he picked that up very quickly. But it was interesting to see him go out there and sort of test it and everything, because he would have had to put his own shelters up in the past when he's been out on active duty and things like that. So I just respect the fact that he's got that, but he's also got the TV personality to go with it as well. And again, his way that he is sort of handling the contestants. Again, what I like about the Australian hosts, and this is not just Anne alone, but a lot of reality TV in Australia, is that the hosts, to me, always seem like they're a part of the crew. They don't see themselves as above the crew. And he, again, has that kind of vibe to him. It'd be interesting to know what those people who have been out there think of Ant as a host that are in the live, and how he was sort of perceived out on the island. But he seems like a likable guy.
Yeah, he seems like an absolute top bloke. But he did say one comment which did make me laugh a lot. It was when after Jack was being called like a bully and like a bit of like a bad person and whatnot, he said, well, it appears that food continues to be an emotional issue.
Yeah, because you don't understand. Like I find it quite funny that he has to stand there and ask people to quit the show. And then when they quit there, he's got to be supportive, because in his inside and deep inside of him, when you've watched SAS, he does not want people to quit. Like he's like, you keep going. If your leg falls off, you keep going. So that's something that for him would be very difficult, and he would have to fight that inner turmoil within himself to say, no, this is okay. You can quit. This is a part of the game. And the emotional thing, I fully get it. Giorgio here says, and a sensational host. He is supportive and actually really funny. I can see that. I've seen a little bit of that personality already. Salim saying, I'm going to tell you why I hated watching the Arabic one. The challenges suck. Always throwing balls or stupid trivia challenges, boring to watch, and 100 person too much. Yeah, I get it. The challenges are make or break, I think, in this. So far, I've liked the challenges in $1 Million Island because they've been familiar to some of the things we've seen in Survivor, but it's always been like a twist to it. Even this second challenge that we haven't spoken about, where they have to go out and hug this pole, there was an order in which they got flipped over. And again, Corey's social game standing out here because he's the last person to get flipped over when he's a legitimate threat to win the show or win this specific challenge. But again, it's the twist in this, and Jaden was never in it. Like, even when he was
Nah.
talking in the confessionals, like, oh, I'm going to take this one home. I'm like, your core's not engaged. You're not hugging close to the ball. You've got bad posture being on it. I knew he was out
Yeah.
immediately. And Chelsea was
Yeah.
rock solid. Like, I reckon she
Yeah.
could have been up there for another 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like when I saw like how far his body away was from the pole, I was like, oh, mate, you're done. But yeah, no, like hats off to both Corey and Chelsea for lasting in that challenge for quite a while. It was real nail biter. I didn't know who was going to win. Like normally with some of these challenges, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I reckon Corey's going to win this one, or oh, I think Shani's probably got this one in the bag. But with this one, I really had no idea.
Yeah.
Like it was
Boltonator is saying, found Ant as an average host. 6 out of 10, I would be better. Love you, Kahuna. So he's saying, Kahuna, you should go out there and host the next season. Kahuna could be the next host.
Yeah, I reckon Kahuna should. Yeah, I would watch that. Whatever show Kahuna hosts, I would watch it.
Corey, welcome to the live. Your
Corey.
ears must have been burning because we've spoken a lot about you already up until this point. Firstly, just want to say, great run. Very impressed with you this season. I think that you can tell a lot by how other people perceived you, by the fact that you weren't targeted early on. Chelsea didn't throw you down when she had power. You being flipped over last. Clearly you come across as a great bloke, and it sucked to see you go out in the way that you went out in this game. I never want to see anybody get medevac, but especially someone like yourself that was a big part of making the show great so far. It was gutting to see it, and I hope you get another shot to either go back to the island or to go do something else, because there's so many great reality TV shows now on the Australian networks that I'm sure they'll be reaching out to you in the near future. So stay close to your phone. It's my advice to you. Hey, Mucky.
Yeah, exactly. Right from the preseason, Kahuna called him the golden retriever. And that definitely showed throughout the whole show. Corey, he's just lovable, full of energy. Really sad to see you go, Corey. But hopefully we see you back on our screens soon. And hope that knee has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, Corey's saying, all good, mate. I've had my fair knee injuries, and I am good to go. That's good. That's good. There's a lot of good shows going on at the moment. We'd love to see you back on and get another crack at it. I hate medivacs, and we spoke about this. This show probably has the record for medivacs at this stage in the game. Kahuna calls him the golden retriever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then Salim saying again, the Australian version is way better. It's fresh to watch, especially if it was filmed in an island. The Arabic one was in the Sahara Desert. Wow. That would have been different. That would have been tough.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you forage for food in the Sahara Desert? Like, that would not be easy at all.
No, that wouldn't. Yeah. Gosh,
that's the one thing. That's the one thing I think they could add into a show such as this. Is maybe like a reward challenge where the camps could compete against each other for some sort of food. I know that sometimes within the survival challenge, the person gets to be like Jordan was the last episode, or when he won, he got to take the crabs back to log camp, right? Like, so you get to be a bit of a hero and bring some food back. But that's maybe something if we were to tweak it. Like, I'd love to talk to you and Kahuna maybe when the season is done about how do we like vision board a few different outcomes or scenarios that could improve the game. Like what do we think we could adjust or amend on the game to make it a little bit more entertaining? And but then again, we wouldn't have the food drama we've got right now. And I'm actually in the beginning I didn't enjoy it, but now I'm enjoying it because Jack's being stubborn as hell.
Yeah, actually, like I said this on our last podcast as well, but the one moment I love so much is when Jack, in confessional, is fine to be villainous and say, oh, let them starve. But when Jack was telling them to their faces, no, we're going to let you starve. Yeah, we want you to starve and quit. And then, who was it? Did Corey win the D-Day, like power pick thing? And just look on Jack's face when someone from Log Camp won it. I was like, oh, yeah, bro, you should have shut up, hey?
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a bit of a target moving forward, because by the end of this week, we do see that, one of the two players who were considering leaving the game, Tez, or at least the edit made us think that she was considering leaving because she was saying about how it's too hard for her to hang in there and all those things. And then Jonathan is the one who actually quits, which was sad to see someone that's had power twice in the game leave in the way that he did. I'm sure that the lack of food would have played into his thought thoughts when he had to make that decision. But, you know, Tess does end up winning the power going into next week.
Yeah.
So that's not good for Jack at all, especially if he
No.
is still playing that hard line about not sharing the food, which, again, I understand where he's coming from. I do think Tess is going to take a shot at him.
I think so too. I think at this point, you could probably put up everyone in Vine Camp. Just knock them all out, I think. Because isn't there only like 6 people left?
Yeah, they've got. I think they've got 6 people left in Vine, so you could potentially knock the whole Vine camp out. Which then the food's up for grabs, right? I guess it'll be a similar case to Tess when her camp got decimated, where she was there on her own and people just came and helped themselves to the food while she was still there.
Exactly.
And then she had to go choose a camp. So whoever is the one remaining player of Vine, if there is one, potentially would be able to choose which camp they would want to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. So
do you think that, Tess obviously being in log camp, and that's the camp with the higher moral standards?
She's on top with Brett.
Oh, she's in top camp. Oh, yeah, right. You're right.
Top camp, yeah.
You're right. Sorry, it's hard to keep on top of it. Being a top camp, who knows? She might actually throw a monkey wrench in the plan and take on some of the bigger players. Like, I'd be shocked if Brett doesn't go in. Like, you want to take him on. Like, even though he's won twice, the only reason he won the second one is because strategically players were giving it to him. They were just making so many mistakes in that second challenge. If you wanted to target him, they did everything possibly wrong to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the luck of the Irish.
He does, yeah. But I can see a way where Brett makes it through, though, because I think, you still got quite a few people in log. You got still quite a few people in Vine. Because I think Tess may have learned from Jaden's mistakes, where he made that move against his own camp, and then he was immediately turned on, right? So I think Tess would have seen that and been like, you know what, I'm not going to put Brett in just yet, but let me try and knock out as many Vine and log for right now. So that's what I think is going to happen for next week.
Yeah. Danica is asking a question here, which I don't remember. I don't know if you remember this, Mucky, but maybe one of the players would be able to answer that question, saying, was Jack one of the ones that invaded Tessa's camp and took her camp's food? I don't remember exactly who went in there. There was a lot of people.
He might have been.
The question would be who wasn't in there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I definitely see a scenario where he definitely was in there. I'll have to rewatch it. But something as well, Chris, and I would love to know if you picked up on this, but Jack is wearing the exact same outfit George was wearing in Brains versus Brawn.
Is he?
On the original Brains tribe. Yeah, it's almost like identical hat, identical like white shirt, white top. Like in the first few episodes of Brains versus Brawn, it's like almost exactly the same. It's like, wow.
But personality-wise, they couldn't be more opposite. They couldn't be more opposite.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. George is a very honorable man, and I can see him like about to quit for someone else, because that's just the George would
no ways. No ways. Let's have a look at a few more of the comments coming in. Voltonator saying the moral standards with the food is the biggest bullshit. You are fighting for $1 million and you set the president you aren't sharing. Don't cry because now you are hungry and used all your food. Hey, you said it. I can't disagree with that comment. I can't. Again, like I said, I mean, it's easy sitting on the sidelines and being such a big fan of competitive reality TV shows, being, keyword being competitive. This is a strategy. If people like it or not, you can starve the other camp out. And like Jordan going over asking for food, if he does quit because Jack doesn't give him that food, that's one spot closer to the end for someone like Jack, so it makes sense to me. And they've got absolutely no other power in the game. I saw a post that showed who had the highest percentage chances of actually getting a wheel spin, and Vine's got like 6% or something chance of the wheel falling on them. Log now lost with Corey over 20%, so they're somewhere in the mid-20s. And then by far, Top Camp's got all the power when it comes to the spins right now, because they've got both Chelsea and Brett. So that's another reason why at some point you want to take either Chelsea or Brett out, because you need to shift that power over to the other side. Like if you're Vine and you by the grace of God get that roulette to land on you, you got to take a shot at the big dogs now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you've got nothing to lose. You know, you're low on numbers, so you're not. It's going to be very rare to get a wheel spin. So if you get it, I can just chuck in everyone with the highest number of bracelets.
100%.
Just straight up, yeah.
I just want to see if there's anybody we haven't spoken about or any of the things. I just wanted to briefly touch on Lisa as well. She impressed me
Oh
this
yes,
this week because Jaden looked at her as a weakling when I don't know if he actually knew who she was or what she's achieved in
yeah,
life before. Getting like 5 world records at sailing or
yeah,
5
yeah,
championships, something like that. That's
yeah,
not the sign of a weak competitor. Like that takes either a certain level of mental fortitude or stamina, or winners win and losers lose. Like if she's won and
yeah.
she's achieved that in life, like I don't think he knew who she was. I would be surprised if he knew that about her when he took her in there. And I was impressed by her fighting spirit, especially when she did end up winning the survival challenge.
Yeah, no, really happy for Lisa, and I can definitely, touch on the sailing skills because once upon a
Mm,
time, Chris, I did sailing back when I was, a cheeky wee kid. But I just had one problem. Since I'm, quite tall, the bloody like bar on the mast it kept hitting me. So every time I went
yeah.
to go like turn or like make it loose, it kept hitting me in the head, and I quit because I just had enough. So yeah, great job. But yeah,
Corey
great
with
job on Lisa though.
Corey with the big question here. Chris, here's a question. You know your staff. Would you ever go on a reality TV show? I would. Yeah, that's the short answer. I'm a massive Survivor fan, day one Survivor fan. So that would be the most likely show I would want to end up on. And I am moving to Australia. I actually live in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm currently traveling in South Africa, where I'm from originally, but I am moving to Melbourne in the coming months. So who knows? Like, there's so much good reality TV now on Australian TV that there's plenty of shows I could apply for. Like Survivor would be my first choice. Then Amazing Race probably, and I quite like the idea of Rush as well, which I just watched the first 2 episodes. It looks interesting. Um, I don't personally know if I would want to play Million Dollar Island because I feel like there's too much things that are out of your hands when it comes to power and when you can choose to put people down there. Like the one opportunity you get for power is a very risky opportunity when you potentially could go home because you got to put yourself into a challenge and then potentially go home. So I don't know. I wouldn't say no to it, but I think that, yeah, probably in that order, I'd say Survivor, Amazing Race would probably be the two that I would want to play the most. I don't know how I would do in Big Brother, Mucky, because I find it very hard to be indoors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Being indoors all day would suck, but
Oh,
yeah, I
man.
think you'll do quite well with Survivor and the Amazing Race.
Hey, don't put a
Yeah.
target on my back.
No, no,
Don't do
no,
that.
bro.
I do horrible.
The entire time during Heroes vs Villains, you're like, "Oh, Mucky, if you're out there, you would be so strategic." You know. So this is my turn to throw you under the bus.
Throw me
Right?
under the bus.
Yeah,
Jeez. All right, we'll
yeah.
have to, after the live's done, we'll just edit that part out. I never answered that question. The magic of editing.
Yeah.
Kahuna says, but relationships are the most important part of the game. Be a dick, okay, but karma will come back to you. And that's the case with a lot of reality TV shows, but it's really coming into play now with the end game here for Million Dollar Island. Andretti said, I would have attempted to burn down one of the camps by now due to frustration and moral standards, who they entrusted not to forage for seaweed due to the health risk. Only problem you have there's so many people out there, Andre, you'd have to pick your time because I feel like with 100 people, someone's always bound to be in the camp. Like if you burn it down, you might burn someone down inside of the camp as well. So you got to be careful of that stuff. Jonathan saying top 8 right now by money and alphabetically, not including immune, is Chelsea, Brett, Carla, Jordan, and Jordan is hanging on by a thread. Like he could be out this week. I wouldn't be surprised to see him quit. Georgie, John, Alpha, that's a name I've forgotten. Like he kind of he was prominent in the beginning of the game and then just left. And then Allison, Kylie. So there's a few people. I didn't know Kylie was in it as well.
I
I
think
don't know
there's
how
like
many.
3.
3. All right.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong
Oh,
though.
thanks, Corey. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. What about the Challenge Fresh Meat 3? I feel like Danny, what you have to do is you first have to be on a different reality TV show because the challenge now only sort of recruits people from other reality TV shows. But I'd love to do the challenge as well because I love obstacle course races and stuff like that. So that kind of sort of fits into the stuff that I love doing in any case. And now having watched quite a lot of the challenge, obviously I'm a big fan of it as well. So I'd love to be on the challenge. It's just the reason I didn't mention it because I think the likelihood of them doing a Fresh Meats 3 where they just get people that are like random everyday Australians or everyday no Kahuna. Get your mind out of the gutter. But yeah, no, it's I think that the challenge would be another one I'd love to do as well. All right. What have we not spoken about? I feel like we've gone through most of the big points. Is there anything you wanted to bring up from this week that you wanted to discuss?
What do you think about Jaden's move here, trying to go against Larkham?
Again, it's so hard because we kind of we said that Chelsea did a good thing by doing that and getting all the power, right? So she ended up with power in the game, which now allowed for her to become the richest person in the game. So if Jaden won, I think we all would have said here, what a great game move. And he took his feelings out of the game. He backstabbed his own camp, which is not great, but his camp still allowed for him to come back and be there in any case. So they still lived up to that moral standard of not kicking him out or allowing for him to sleep in the camp. So you would have been like, great move. The problem with Jaden is that he overestimated his own ability to do well in the challenge. And granted, you don't get you don't get much of a clue from Ant. He just said you have to hang on for dear life or something was the clue. So in my mind, if I got that clue, I would have thought it would be something with grip strength or something with endurance immediately. So either Jaden didn't know himself well enough. I feel like he didn't because his form was so bad from the start that you just knew he wasn't going to win it. So you have to say, just based on the clue alone, he took too big of a gamble. But it also comes down to the fact that I think there's a certain amount of frustration from the players because they're just sitting on their hands for so long and they don't know when the wheel is going to land on them again. So they only have this one shot at sort of taking some bracelets. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So I know that's kind of like a no answer. I think I lean towards Jaden having made a bad mistake based on not knowing his own capabilities at this point. But I understand why he made the move. How about you?
Yeah. I think it was a good move. I think it was just at the wrong time, because no matter what, Camp is like mostly going to be in power, so he's going to be safe for a while longer. I just think that, he should have tried to go for a top camp a bit more and then start making his moves against Log, like when it was more smaller in numbers. Because in that way, if he does lose but then wins the survival, he can easily justify it by being like, oh, well, I had to put some people up in Log. Whereas, like, in this case, like, if he did win survival and then someone from Log had won, then he was going to be going straight back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is exactly this, Jonathan,
What?
saying only 1 week left. I don't know if it's... he said that we're going into finale week, but I don't know if next week is officially the last week or if it's going to be split over 2 weeks because they do 2 episodes per week. So it could potentially be 1 week left in game, but 2 weeks left of us watching the show. But Anne mentioned that the game is going to change and that Chelsea is safe for now. So I do have a feeling as we get into the end game here, the richest person in the game is no longer going to be safe and they're going to be up for grabs quite consistently within the next round or two. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do to the format and how they're going to ramp it up because we still have, I think, about 20 players left in the game. We're 21 days into the game right now, so they're going to end up with this game not being that much longer than current Survivor US. Survivor US is about 26 days, so they might end up with about 28 days in this game. So, a lot of sort of question marks out there on how this game is going to end, but I'm all here for it. I'm glad we picked up the show. It's the first time we've done a show outside of our normal staples shows, and it's been enjoyable to cover it so far. I've really enjoyed talking to you about it here today as well. Is there anything you wanted to add from your end? Anything that you feel like we should have mentioned?
I can't think of anything on top of my head, no. But I'm really loving the show. I'm really enjoying it, like getting to know the cast through our podcasts as well. There's some of the players like the Vault, for example, who didn't get any screen time, but we clearly got to see his personality through our podcast. I've definitely loved that aspect as well. And it's been a really great, fun, and new show.
Corey here does have a great observation saying, took his shot, that's good, but our camp strategy was to wipe out the other camp, then play the individual game, use our bracelet power. And that does make sense from a camp perspective because they played a team game. taking a shot at Corey and then putting other people, like, it's one thing if you said, I'm going to take all of the highest earners within my camp and I'm going to try and get as much money as I can from our camp. At least that way you control where the bracelets would be. The bracelets would remain within log camp, but he didn't do that.
Yeah.
He went for strong players from opposing camps, which weakened his tribe. So I get from a team perspective, that thinking about it now, I not only did he, overestimate his own abilities, but he definitely screwed his camp, So I kind of get that, because how many times does he have to win at the end? Like, he only has to win once or twice to get all the bracelets in any case. So just hang on that big move, and maybe, think about it from a camp perspective. That's a really, really good point there, Corey. Second that, Jojo Sexy Beast Georgie. I might have missed something here somewhere. I would like to congratulate Jaden on wiping out a third of the log. Yep.
Yeah. Great strategy.
Curry praised the gods. She came to log. Danica saying, that is how I would want to play it, like a family, protect your own until the end, then individual competition from there. Yeah, it's weird, because in Survivor, that's kind of how it works, right? You're forced to play with your camps until you get to a merge, and then it's everyone for themselves. But Jaden was thinking individual, and similar to how Brett's thinking individual. Like, I feel like Brett would have made a similar move even if he wasn't in power to Jaden, because he's very single-mindedly, individually focused right now in the game.
Yeah.
Bolton said, thank you, Jaden, on behalf of Rock Camp. We would have recruited you. Yep. All right, that's it here for this week's coverage of $1 Million Island. Thank you so much for everybody that has tuned in and taken part of the conversation. You've been a lively crowd here tonight. It's been really good to be back on a live for the first time this season. I'm sure, Mucky, at some point I'll be jumping back on to talk to yourself and Kahuna about this season as we wrap it up here. And any final thoughts there from your end?
Yes, I just want to say RIP shirtless John T. Where was your shirtless moment this episode, John T? Where was it at? But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Chris. Always love doing live podcasts with you. So yeah, really 100% after season.
Please consider subscribing if you've never done so before and this is your first time on the channel. We are considering adding more and more shows to the channel. I'm very excited. I've spoken to a few more people that want to join the Nullified Take channel, so there might be some announcements for that in the coming weeks as we continue to add more shows. At this stage, Traders Australia Season 2, we're definitely covering that on the channel when that comes around. So we're adding another new show. I'm 50-50 on if I do some coverage on Rush as well. Jonathan is saying Rush next week. I'm considering it, Jonathan. I'm considering it. I've only watched the first episode, but I really enjoyed it. So we want to continue to add. The more people who subscribe, the more people who like and comment on that, we can make this one of the bigger reality TV networks when it comes to podcasting for Australian reality TV, because Australia is putting so much great effort into these shows right now that I want to show it some love. And we'll obviously continue to cover all of the US shows that we cover as well with Survivor. The Challenge USA is coming back very soon. So I've got a draft for the Challenge USA Season 2 coming up this weekend. And Survivor, An Amazing Race, is around the corner as well. So very excited about that. But for now, that is it.
Wait, did Chris leave? Oh my gosh, Chris left. All right.
Whoops, sorry about that. Premature. Jumped out. See you guys next time. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, we actually have a saying, Chris. We've just for $1 Million Island. At the end of every live, we've got a catchphrase. We say,
go for it.
Just like Ant. Muck off back to camp and whip out your bulges, everyone. Have a great night, guys.
On that night, see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.